Over the years, Runescape has had multiple approaches to how we train our skills. Today, I would like to talk about one that I have been finding quite interesting. Before we hop into the method itself, first we need to understand how Jagex thinks about skilling methods in general. While this is in no way exhaustive, it can give us a good basis of understanding in what goes into the development of skilling methods. For the most part, skilling methods are a balance between two ideas: effort and reward. Effort usually means either the difficulty or the attention required to do the method. Reward means giving the player something for their efforts, usually in form of XP or GP. Of course, that rewards wise, you can give the player one or both, or you can even give them unique rewards. For us, what's important to understand is that you do get a reward for engaging with the method. Rewards can actually depend even on quality or quantity, even if all we're talking about is GP. As such, the game usually tries to walk a fine line between two ideas. If the effort is low, and you can fully AFK it, you shouldn't be expecting a huge reward for it. In the same vein, a reward that is worthy will very likely require a good amount of attention in order to be successful. There is a correlation here. The more effort, the higher the reward. For the most part, and for the purposes of this video, I simply want to break this down into three main categories: AFK methods, which give low rewards, semi-AFK methods, which give average rewards, and active methods, which give good rewards. Those are the three boxes that I will be considering for the video. Skilling methods were defined by one thing. They all fall somewhere on the scale between effort and reward. These methods are static, meaning whatever effort the method actually requires, that's the method it will always require. Depending how, or what, the way you want to actually do it, you actually have, to change methods entirely in order to be able to change where you are on this scale. Thus, they are static and don't change since the effort required is pretty much always the same. However, Runescape 3 has been experimenting with a new approach, a dynamic method that adapts your reward to the effort you put in. Okay, maybe this isn't as fancy as I'm making it seem, but it is quite interesting nonetheless. In this case, what I'm talking about is methods like mining, for example, or construction at the fort. These methods are interesting in that you essentially have low effort with low reward, as well as high effort and high reward, all within the same skilling method. Let's explain mining, since I think this is the perfect example. You can fully AFK it, no ifs or buts, all the way until you get logged. That is, however, pretty slow because of our first modifier, the stamina bar. The stamina bar essentially ensures that you always have a choice to make. Either let it deplete fully and enjoy your full AFK status, or click every once in a while, spending a little bit more effort but making your mining progress faster. At this point we have both a AFK method yielding low amounts of rewards, or yielding low odds in this scenario as we're talking about mining, as well as low XP, while also having the same method be semi-AFK, which yields more rewards and a little bit more XP. But what if we could fit the third box into this scenario and make mining an active method as well? Well, introducing rock tunerities. There are glows essentially that spawn on rocks from time to time called rock tunerities, and clicking on them gives you a critical hit on the rock, which essentially just means bigger progress for a ore to be mined, as well as granting extra XP. So we have an AFK interaction, a semi-AFK interaction, and an active interaction, all within the same skilling method, which in this case is you clicking on a rock. 3 ways to engage with it, all with differing levels of rewards and efforts, all in the same rock. While I have talked about the 3 boxes to simplify things a bit, in reality the XP and GP is directly related to how much attention you pay. If you take extra 5 seconds to click on the rock tunerities, or if you take 10 seconds to click on all rock tunerities, or another player instantly clicking on them, you are pretty much all engaging with the active interaction, albeit at different levels of effort. So, since you are putting different levels of efforts, that also means different levels of rewards, even if the interactions are pretty much active in this case. This works as a scale, and again, all within the same method, and pretty much the correlation is there. The more effort you put in, the more rewards you get, and this goes all the way from the complete AFK interaction to the most active interaction you can have. So, to make a mini recap, usually a method is static and offers itself at one point of the scale between effort and reward. Mining offers a dynamic approach where your reward is directly related to the effort you put in, so depending on how much effort you want to put in, you will be rewarded accordingly, all while being able to just do the exact same scaling method. That is the new dynamic approach that Jagex is taking to scaling methods. Another example is the construction method at the fort. The method is very simple. You click on the beams to build whatever you want to build, and some of those beams will have a glow that changes every once in a while and offers extra XP if you are building on them. Yet again, you have one method, and yet again, you have essentially a full AFK ranging all the way to, at this point, a semi-AFK approach within the exact same method, and yet again, your reward, in this case the XP you will be getting, will be directly correlated to the effort you put in. Obviously, this is a simplified version of how Jagex actually develops methods. There are other factors that go into it. For a starter, one method can have both XP and GP as a reward, and that Jagex might want to balance the effort with a reward, but also balance what reward they actually want to offer. Zalkainu is a skilling boss in old school Runescape that offers you very low XP but a good amount of GP. You can now actually switch to sacrifice most GP drops except for the unique drops, but get a boost in XP since players enjoy that boss as a mining skilling method. Whatever other moving parts the skilling methods might have when being designed, I just wanted to try and simplify this part since I think it's actually pretty neat, and honestly it's such a simple thing that most players probably won't even realize what's going on. With everything that is good in this world, there are always downsides, and to be honest, the downside here actually isn't even that big, but obviously there are some concerns. For one, a lot of the dynamics that, comes from these methods don't actually change how you interact with the methods themselves. This is kind of the strength of the method, but it's important to keep in mind that ultimately you do need different scaling methods altogether. On top of that, static methods aren't entirely bad either. Sometimes when you own in some of the more unique rewards, like scaling outfits for example, it's actually good to have a static method that doesn't change much so players can have a clearer picture of what they need or how long it's gonna take them to get that reward. Relying on a single way of doing skilling methods or of doing anything in the game design wise tends to actually be pretty bad, especially when we are talking about a game like this with such long longevity. Players enjoy variety, and I would not enjoy that every method would have that dynamism built into it. And lastly, I think a major issue with the dynamic system is that the methods tend to be pretty simple. A lot of the modifiers are simple things like rock tunerities, which is a glow that gives you extra XP, or a stamina bar. And as I highlighted earlier, that's kind of their strength. But also highlights the importance of having other methods, in particular ones that might actually need some practice to get right and learn. I have mentioned Zalkainu earlier, and while in order to get good rewards is something you need to do. You need to actually learn how to actually do the boss, even though the boss doesn't actually change much between kills. This allows players to actually have a different amount of rewards, not because of effort, but because of skill in this case, because even static methods do have that effort versus reward differing quality in them. They just don't go the full range like the dynamic methods I talked about here. And usually, these dynamic methods tend to only really touch on the most basic things that the skills actually do provide. Thus, they aren't exactly alternative methods, but core ways to train the skill, such as mining or, in this case, construction. Again, just to reiterate, it's good to have different approaches and different methods for the skills. With a game that is 23 years old at this point, it's only natural Jagex has tried a lot of things and has taken a plethora of meta approaches when it comes to them. And before I actually send off this video, I just want to touch on two things really quick. One is social skilling. The rework for mining and smithing came because players essentially didn't really enjoy mining and competing with other players for resources. Resource competition is a very outdated way of offering the effort versus reward idea, and a lot of players nowadays don't really enjoy it. Jagex has been steering into making social skilling, essentially offering you rewards and incentives for you to play the game with other players. And that's why nowadays for example with smithing, we have the Artisan's Workshop, where you do get a buff if you are doing smithing with other players. Smithing is something that I didn't touch on this video, but smithing is also a skill that nowadays that it does have the dynamic method inbuilt into it, because, well, mining and smithing rework. So social skilling was actually a very important step to actually make these dynamic methods even viable to begin with. They would not be viable if, simply put, the nodes actually ended up depleting. They don't, and that's why these methods are actually viable to do, even with gathering skills, in this case mining. A second thing I just want to point out is how a lot of that social skilling passed through removing the negative punishment and instead offering a positive punishment. I'm not gonna go into the difference between negative punishment and positive punishment in this video. I might make a sole video about it, although I already touched on it in my No Monkey response, I think. But essentially that is also another thing that contributes to a method being able to exist within the spectrum of being either fully AFK or being completely active, all within the same method, and you being able to change it on the fly. And yeah, that's essentially, I guess, the new skilling. I mean, it's not exactly new, it has been around for a bit now, but that's essentially the new skilling method that Jagex is offering. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something about how the game works.